Hello. We are going over the 324 biblical prophecies that prove Jesus is the Messiah. You are watching this on the Halachgoy channel of YouTube. I'm a Halachgoy, and you can be one too. 324 biblical prophecies that prove Jesus is the Messiah. Prophecy number 61 was not to see corruption. We find this prophecy in the book of Psalms, chapter 16, verse 10. Because you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your Holy One see decay. We find the fulfillment of this prophecy in the book of Acts, chapter 2, verses 31. I'm going to read verses 29 to 31. Brothers, I can tell you confidently that the patriarch David died and was buried, and his tomb is here to this day. But he was a prophet and knew that God had promised him on oath that he would place one of his descendants on his throne. Seeing that was ahead, he spoke of the resurrection of the Christ, and he was not abandoned, that he was not abandoned to the grave, nor did his body see decay. So King David, in Psalms chapter 16, verses 10, says, because you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your Holy One see decay. King David, in this psalm is associated with his contrition, with his repentance, with his meditations on the sin he committed with Bathsheba. David had found there to be iniquity within his heart, and he was horrified at this. God searched him and found there to be a fault. David was finding hope. David was finding hope when he spoke the words, because you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your Holy One see decay. When he is speaking these words, he's not speaking necessarily of his physical death. Of course, as the Apostle Peter points out in the second chapter of Acts, David did in fact die, and he decayed in the grave. That's the normal thing that people usually do after they die. They decay in their grave. I'm not sure that that's what King David was speaking of in the 16th chapter of Psalms, because if he was speaking of that, as the Apostle Peter pointed out, it would be wrong. When we read the 16th chapter of Psalms, because you will not abandon my soul, or abandon me to the grave, what is being said here, the me that's being said here, is the nephesh. That is, you will not abandon my nephesh, my soul, to the grave. Nor will you let your Holy One, and King David is speaking of himself at this point, see decay, or the end of his existence, or his destruction. King David fears that because of the iniquity within his heart, his soul may be left in the grave and be destroyed in the grave, that there would be no future for his soul. And he is speaking here a proclamation to God, not a request, but a proclamation stating it as a fact that God will not abandon his nephesh in the grave, and God will not allow him to be destroyed. The same thing can be said for Jesus. The same thing can be said for, hopefully, all of us. The next prophecy we'll be looking at was to arise from the dead. Psalms chapter 16, verses 9 through 11. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.